Think about the abusive person in your life, whoever this might be. Are they abusive to everyone? No. Usually not the way it works, right? They're flying monkeys, they're totally cool with. They are nice to those people. New people, attractive women, they're nice to those people, right? But to you, not so much. They choose who they abuse. They choose. And it's usually because you don't let them get away with shit, and because you speak up, and because you challenge them, and they don't like that. And when you do, they get abusive, right? They want to assert dominance, control over you. It's a choice, guys. This is a choice. Remember this. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt, and I'm still flying solo. Paige is still on hiatus and enjoying her time away from the show. She'll be back. Can't say exactly when, but she will be back. Don't worry. Don't fret. You've only got me for a little while longer. I'm covering topics while I'm here doing these episodes myself that are especially relevant to me. And I know my role here at the show has always been to provide people insight as to what it takes to change and how you rebuild a life after addiction. And there's been abuse and turmoil and lack of trust and lack of emotional connection. And we kind of walk people through that process in so many ways over time. But what we also do, I hope, is tell you what recovery is not, to help you sift through the smoke screen and all the BS that people generally feed you as they are doing the bare minimum or not really walking the walk or really not recovering at all, in hopes that you can tell the difference and you can make decisions based off of that. One of the books that I read long ways into recovery, God, I was probably sober 7 years or so. It's like 4, maybe 5 years ago, maybe less than that even. I read a book by Lundy, Bancroft, called Why Does He Do That? Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. Now, I had originally stumbled upon this book while browsing TikTok one night, and I came across this video, and this person was talking about abuse, but they weren't talking about abuse in the typical sense that we think of abuse. When I think of abuse, it conjures physical violence, usually. That's kind of what I think of, physical violence or like physical intimidation. And that was kind of as far as it went with me. This person was talking about lying as a form of abuse. And I was like, lying's not abuse. Lying is just lying. What is this exaggeration? Like, what the hell is this? And so I was initially triggered to watch the video, like almost like rage bait. But I have come to know enough about myself that when I am triggered by something, I generally need to pay attention. That's usually the selfish side of me coming out to defend something. It's my ego's way of popping out to say, hello, I'm still here. I'm here to defend you. So I paid attention and I watched the video with an open heart and open mind. And the creator made some really, really good points. And they referenced this book. And so I got a copy and I read through the book. Still a little reluctant because I was still kind of confused. Like, what's the difference between arguing with someone, disagreeing on something, and being abusive? And the book actually walks you through that very thing. The author defines abuse as someone that mistreats or devalues their partner, chronically mistreats or devalues their partner. And in that context, a lot of things that we don't normally consider abusive can become abusive. So I'm going to walk you through a checklist that the author has come up with to determine when to know someone has changed. And I think that I have gone through this enough times to understand it well enough to walk you through it and even build it into the context of addiction recovery as well. They talk about addiction a bit in the book. It's mostly around just abuse in general. But I think I've tailored this to our listeners, and you guys are really going to like this one. You're going to get a lot of insights from me. So stick around. I think it's going to be a really good one. Recording this at the last minute like I normally do. This episode, the first of you will see this thing, I don't know, an hour after I finish it, probably. It's going to be a late night, but it's something I actually really did want to do. Considered for a moment not recording, but man, I made a commitment, and so that's what I'm here to do. Hey, if you don't know what Soberlink is by now, where have you been? Soberlink is the world's greatest accountability device that sort of resembles a breathalyzer. Now, for the longest time, Soberlink has been offering our listeners 50% off a device, which is an amazing offer. It really is 50% off a device. Like, imagine if T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T told you we're going to give you 50% off of your cell phone, it's a pretty good deal. See, Soberlink's got two components. There's the one component, which is a breathalyzer. And you might just think, okay, it's another breathalyzer, but it's really not. It's got built-in facial recognition technology, like military-grade facial recognition technology. It is tamper-proof, but what really sets it apart is the second component, which is the reporting component. You can sign up people in your accountability circle to help hold you accountable. It keeps you accountable for a couple of reasons, right? One, you are not going to be using this thing if you know that your wife is going to be instantly alerted the moment that you use it and you've been drinking that day. You're going to think twice about drinking that day. So it does help establish some of that pure grit sobriety that you do need some degree of in the beginning before we really discover some of the root causes, as we'll get to later. And then it also puts people in your circle that are really rooting for you. They're going to get alerted, and you choose who these people are. You choose how many times you use this device. And what it really is, what I tell guys, if you're serious this time and you've said it's going to be different this time, it's going to be different this time, put your money where your mouth is and voluntarily get one of these things. It is a gift you give to your loved ones and yourself. What does it really do for your loved ones, and why is it so important to the work we do here on our show? Is because it gives them peace of mind, something they have not had in a very long time. They no longer have to go searching for bottles. They get tests 3 times a day if that's what you choose to do, which, I don't know, you decide what works best for you, but think about it: morning, afternoon, and night. You're not going to be able to get drunk and then sober up before your next test comes up. 3 to 4 times a day you're using this thing, and they don't have to go searching anymore. They're going to know. You're going to give them that peace of mind. You're going to give them their sanity back as they're not constantly sitting in a state of anxiety, worried, are they drinking or are they not? Why are they here for too long? As they're checking your locations and doing all this stuff, and they've become so hyper vigilant and fixated on you. This is your gift to them to give them that back. And for spouses and partners, this can serve 2 purposes. One, it can help you start to rebuild that trust that you so desperately want in your relationship again. Or the other side is that you're going to know when someone's not being honest. You're going to know when someone's not really doing the deal. And you're going to know that. So you're not going to have to question as they're lying to you. No, I didn't drink. Yes, you did. I have proof here on the test. And I know what my next decision needs to be. A lot of people are at this point in their relationships and no one wants to say it, but it's the truth. And that's why Soberlink and devices like this exist. Not devices like this. Soberlink is really the only one like this. Again, there's 2 components to this thing, right? There's the device itself, and you used to get 50% off that. And then there's the monthly plan piece. Here's what Soberlink is doing. No upfront equipment costs. You will pay nothing upfront for that piece of equipment. You will pay it monthly, as little as $19.99 when you sign up for 1 year. Go ahead and sign up for a year. I'm telling you from experience, it takes about a year, at least a year, to start to feel comfortable in the world sober again. You're going to be extremely triggered and want to go back to your old ways. Hold yourself accountable for at least a year. Give them peace of mind for at least a year. For $19.99, you can get the device, no upfront costs. And then they're also going to do you one better. When you use our link, soberlink.com/wheels, they are going to send you a $100 Visa gift card that you can apply back to your budget. That's going to cover a portion of that monthly reporting that we talked about, which is so crucial. That's what really sets it apart. That's what makes it the real deal. And then listen, there's another use of this thing as well. If you're at the point in your relationship where you're just done, this relationship is cooked. I know it is. At this point, dude, I'm just trying to make sure my kids are going somewhere safe. They're there for you in those moments too. It is court admissible in all 50 states and in Canada. It's considered the gold standard in court. You can get these things written into your custody agreements so that you can have peace of mind when your children go and visit your spouse, to know that at the very least, there is a sober adult there. Now, we can't control what they say or do necessarily, but at the very least, they're going to be sober. So again, it's soberlink.com/wheels. Hey, and while you're on the internet, stop over to twfo.com where you can check out everything that we offer. We've got a program called Independently Strong, which was built by us, me, Paige, and Dr. Christopher Taylor, our clinical architect. He is a licensed therapist. Now, this is not therapy, but it is backed by therapeutic concepts and is co-signed by a licensed therapist. He makes several appearances within the program to talk about some of the concepts we discussed, things like setting boundaries, what are your values, codependency to some degree. We really don't go heavy on codependency, and Paige has got an awesome episode coming out on Friday that you won't want to miss if you've ever wondered about codependency, how to build a healthy self, and many, many more. It is 10 modules long. And at the very end of it, we will present a module called Should I Stay or Should I Go? At that point, it is our hope that you do what you think is best and that you will know what that looks like based on your own values and certainty that you've learned in reclaiming you, in reclaiming yourself, not fear or what you might think that the internet says or what anyone, this is going to come from you. And this is what we hear from spouses and partners so often, is that they feel like they've lost their sense of who they are and their compass. And that's what we do. It also comes with the community. We meet on Wednesday nights, and you get to be part of us. You know, the community, there are people that are really doing the deal, and there's some amazing connections in there. You're going to be around people that truly get it. While you're on that website, you can also check out our merch. We've got stickers and hats and shirts and recovery rocks, which were a really, really cool way to acknowledge the journey that someone has walked with you through recovery. This is a token that you give your spouse and your partner, whoever it might be in your life, that has been there with you through addiction as you are working to become a better person, as you are working to live substance free. And it says, "Thank you for being my rock" on the back, and on the front, it's got our logo. Sorry, stumbling over my words as I'm looking for it here on the desk, and it's not here. And I just realized that, and I kind of panicked for a second, but it's okay. You can see them on the website. We've got a new batch coming in as well. A lot of people buy these things, and I think it's awesome because it really does show that people are taking the message we have here to heart, and they're showing people the appreciation that so few spouses and partners get. It's really cool, really, really cool to watch. We've also got a newsletter. I've kind of slowed down on it, but I'll still send it out there. You can sign up. It's free. Also, we've got a free Facebook community where you can connect with other listeners and people going through this and be around people who are safe. It is a safe space for partners and spouses to come and support one another and to talk about their issues. You can post anonymously if you would like. You can find out about that there. All things TUFO related, you can find out about there. I think I've covered. Oh, Paige just started something new. This is something cool. We've had people reach out. I'm always blown away when they do. And they're like, I want to help you guys in some way. Like, I don't have much, but I would love to give you, like, buy you guys a cup of coffee. And there's this thing called, like, buy me a cup of coffee now. Paige just recently set this up. And if you're a listener and, like, listen, you like the show and you want to support us as creators to help take care of the costs that go with this, or if we've helped you in some way and you would like to contribute, you can click our link tree on our social media profiles and you can give us whatever you like. Cup of coffee. I love coffee. I'm a coffee fiend. It is one of the very few vices that I did not give up. I love it. So we would appreciate it, but hold no judgment whatsoever and love you all the same if you don't. Okay, on to today's episode. Again, talking about abuse here, talking about what change actually looks like. And we're going to walk through a checklist of what change actually is. But first, I wanted to discuss the terms abuse. I kind of told you that story in the open a little bit, as I was thrown off by the word abuse. It was a hard thing for me to admit that I had not only been addicted to drugs and alcohol, but I was also an abusive person. And in many ways, I think that the 12-step education that I got made sure that I didn't feel any shame. They reminded me over and over that I had a disease, that I was sick, that I should not feel badly because I was a sick person, not a bad person. But I don't think that's entirely true. Speaking for myself here, okay? I was aware of what I was doing a lot of the times. Like, these were choices that I'd made. Like, I as I'll tell you stories later on as we get in the checklist, there were moments when I was about to snap and I gave myself permission to do that. And I wasn't drunk and I wasn't high. So what do we call that, right? Addiction is a disease as defined by science, and I'm not here to argue with scientists, but there is a component of choice in addiction, and I will stand by that all day, every day. And not all of our bad behaviors leave when the substance leaves. Not to mention, not all addictions are substance related. Some of them are behavioral, right? There's gambling and there's sex and porn addiction. And a lot of the behaviors with those people are similar. So I would argue, and I am not a therapist, I am not a professional, I do not hold advanced degrees in any of this stuff. I'm just a guy with a microphone and an opinion and someone that's been there with experience, someone who's actually walked through this. And I would say that there is oftentimes, I would say most of the time, abuse kind of inherently built in to the behavior of an addicted person of some kind that is separate from their actual addiction. I don't know why. I would love to understand the mechanisms from someone that is much smarter than me, but that is my hypothesis and I'm sticking to it, okay, for what it's worth to you. But I do believe that. I've been one myself, and I've known so many over the years, and we all have so many things in common. And they're around our behaviors, not just around how we use substances or when we use substances. It's about the actual behaviors that we present in the world and in our relationships, and this selfish component. And I get kicked all the time on social media for saying this stuff, and it doesn't make it not true. You can feel like it causes shame to people. You can feel like it stigmatizes it, but I don't think it does. I think it brings a greater awareness to what recovery actually requires. And we need to stop with this idea that you just need to stop drinking. You just need to stop taking the drugs. You just need to stop watching porn, because there is so much more going on within us. Trauma does play a role in addiction. We know this, and there are more studies on this than you can possibly imagine. And some of the effects of trauma toward people are some of these behaviors. Like, you look at a clinical narcissist, right? In 2025 is like one of the worst things you can get called on the internet, although it seems like everyone's a narcissist these days. And if everyone is, that means nobody is. But anyway, a lot of that stuff, a lot of personality disorders like this are born out of trauma. But does that excuse the treatment they give other people? Hell to the no. It does not excuse it. No. The way that we treat people, we were still responsible for, regardless of what's happened to us in our past. It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. I'm sure you, listener, you, the viewer, have been through something in your life, and you could easily treat people poorly, but you make a concerted effort not to. I don't think that we should be excused from that just because we have addictions or anything else that's ever happened in our lives. And so I have a really hard time having these like deeply empathetic discussions around addiction and things like that, because I know firsthand that there is a personal choice component to it. I'm not saying that the other stuff isn't true. I'm saying two things can be true at the same time. And this should give you hope, if anything, if you're listening and you're anything like me, because that means that you do have some role to play here in fixing this, regardless of what's happened. And that means that you're not broken and that there is hope. Or you could take it the other way and say, can't win, don't try. What's the point? The guy just said I was doomed, but I didn't. Don't hear what I didn't say, but ultimately I know that you're going to hear what you want to. So let's get into this discussion of abuse. Again, I thought it was a really dirty word. I didn't want to identify someone that was abusive, but when I started to read through this book, I started showing up all over the pages. The book is considered like the Bible for saving domestic violence, or survivors of domestic violence, or people who were in domestic violence. And it does talk a lot about domestic violence. But abuse isn't always violence. And as the author puts it, it is chronically mistreating or devaluing. Think about that for a moment. And think about what that can mean in your relationship, in your life, right? In some ways, I think some people feel like some criticisms of the book, especially for men, are that, well, that means that everything is abuse. But that's not necessarily true, because there is a difference between being abusive and mistreating someone. So I had to take notes here. So abuse is not necessarily about anger or conflict. Abuse is about power, control, and entitlement. That's the difference. And it's also about a pattern. Abuse is about control, power, and entitlement. And that means that there's a pattern of this over time. It shows up as a pattern of behavior designed to dominate, diminish, or manipulate the partner. And it's not a one-off fight. It's not losing your temper. It's a worldview that says, I have the right to control you, silence you, or punish you if you don't meet my expectations. I hope you can start to see the difference here. And someone in your life may have already come to mind, like, okay, maybe I thought I was abusive, but now I see that they are, right? There's a difference between people who lose it sometimes, because we all lose it sometimes. There's a difference in that and someone who loses it on a very regular basis with the intent to manipulate or control others. It's about power to them. So abuse versus being argumentative. This is the simplest, most basal example I could come up with. So both people can raise their voice, state their case, and even get passionate about something and throw some nasty words back and forth. It's situational though, right? It happens in the heat of a disagreement, and both sides can apologize, they can take accountability, and they can move forward. And there's no underlying belief that one person is superior to the other, or that one person's emotions or feelings are superior to the other. Now, abusive patterns of control. One partner feels entitled to win at all costs. They use tactics like gaslighting, intimidation, silent treatment, belittling, threats, or coercion, or sometimes violence. They reframe issues so their partner is always at fault. They punish their partner emotionally, physically, or financially when not obeyed. And they don't see their partner as an equal. They see them as someone to be controlled, to be dominated. Bancroft often says this, and I love this quote. He says, "An abuser doesn't lose control, he takes control." An abuser doesn't lose control, he takes control. Think of that. And I kind of alluded to that earlier. And this is where I really started to dig into this book. And it was a really tough read for me. Because I'd never thought I always thought of myself as a good guy, right? I was a good guy who had some problems and I had a temper, but I really, really minimized it when I talked about it that way. And even when I was doing my 12-step work, as I was going through it, I started to see the first shades of this. And this is long before I actually read the book, when I talked about my anger and my temper. But I think in my mind, I wanted to convince myself that it was situational or that it was caused by the substance. That is until you start to have these moments sober, or it's until you start to really explore that stuff in your past and the patterns and see that it popped up all the time and it popped up in different situations with different people. It happened a lot. I always felt like I had to win an argument. I had to have the last word, that I had to prove my point, or at the very least, I needed you to see my perspective so well that you would stop questioning it. That's a really, really nice way of saying I needed to be abusive. I think that's what I really am doing there, truly, because that's what it is. That's what it is. We can sit here and say that it's not all day long, but it's really hard to argue here. And you can look at the problems that this causes in a relationship, like the relationship dynamics that we had for a very long time. I was always a stronger personality. And you guys probably see that too on the show at this point, like even to this day, even like both healthy and everything else. Paige is more reserved. She's quieter. She's not like to be picked out of a crowd. I'm louder and I'm an attention whore. Is that just probably just need to come out and say it? She's called me that for years, and I don't need to be, because I think I'm so great. I was always like that little ham of a kid who wanted to be the comedian, like class clown type. I don't know. It's just kind of part of me. For those of you that are into horoscopes, Paige is a Cancer and I'm an Aries. I don't know if that helps anyone. Every time someone asks me what my sign is and I tell them that I'm an Aries, they just go, ooh. Because I don't know anything about it really, but me and Freights were talking about this the other day. Apparently it's like not a good one, but I promise you I'm a good one. I'm not an angry one anymore. But that's just always kind of been our personalities. And I think that as time went on and I got older, I think I always had a problem with authority, and I never liked to be questioned. And this just got uglier and uglier as I got older. Like the pattern was getting worse over time. The addiction was present, and I'm not going to sit here and deny that addiction plays a part. I'm saying it's not the whole part. I'm saying that abuse is not caused by addiction. I'm saying that abuse is exacerbated or intensified by addiction. And so as my addiction got worse, those underlying behaviors started to get worse too. And they started to show up more and more and more, like the lying and the gaslighting. It felt so natural to me already, but I was doing it now to protect this lie that I was telling because I was a closet addict, right? But it's still, what is it doing to her? And in the moment, I never stopped for 1 second to consider, not one time. I knew I felt guilty when I lied at times, but it was so easy just to forget about it. It was so easy just to push it down. And this book, like if I'm talking about this and you'd like to know more, like this book, it's really about the inside the minds of angry and controlling men. Here, let me hold that up. This he was a counselor for abusive, like rehab groups, abusive programs. And he's literally counseled or been around thousands of abusive men. And he kind of gives us some nos, and he makes no bones about it. He basically says, very, very few will actually do the work to recover, and the rest of them forget about it. That's kind of the perspective he takes because he has seen the worst of the worst, right? the physically abusive types, like the covert narcissist types, the kind that have been to therapy but not really changed, but have now learned the language of therapy and use it against people. He says they're the biggest nightmares in the world to work with, but it's got some awesome takes in it. I think that I've pretty much recommended this book to any guy that I've ever like personally known that's been in my position, to tell him to give it a read. You really need to read it. Like, that really changed my perspective and gave me some ideas about where I needed to do some more work, or at least where I needed to have some more awareness. At the end of the day, what it does is provide you more awareness to some of your behaviors. And like, it's really important. And if you have a power dynamic in your relationship such that you've always been the one that kind of got their way, and there's this other partner that has always been kind of quiet and subdued and more muted about things, like, that is a power imbalance. And it shows up in a lot of ways. It shows up financially and domestic labor. And we'll get into this. So Lundy Bancroft published this checklist for assessing change on his website. And I will do my best to remember to put this in our show notes. But if I forget, you can just Google Lundy Bancroft checklist for assessing change, and it'll pop up. And it's like a bunch of little bullet points. I think it's on his actual website, lundybancroft.com. So you know that you're in the right link. At the top, it says checklist for assessing change in men who abuse women. So we are going to read through these, talk about them a little bit, and then we're going to adapt these to the context of recovering from addiction, because I think that everyone's got ideas about what it means to recover. I think that I may have created the most comprehensive list I could ever come up with the help of this list. So number 1, admitting fully to what he has done. 2, stopping excuses. 3, stopping all blaming of her. 4, making amends. 5, accepting responsibility, recognizing that abuse is a choice. 6, identifying patterns of controlling behavior, admitting their wrongness. 7, identifying the attitudes that drive his abuse. 8, accepting that overcoming abusiveness will be a decades-long process, not declaring himself cured. I think I had, is that 9? 9, not starting to say, so now it's your turn to do the work. How many times have y'all heard that one? Not using change as a bargaining chip. 10, not demanding credit for improvements he has made. Okay, I've lost count. I'm just going to go through the rest now. Next, not treating improvements as chips or vouchers to be spent on occasional acts of abuse. Example given, I haven't done anything like this in a long time, so why are you making such a big deal about it? Next up, developing respectful, kind, supportive behaviors. Next, carrying his weight. Next, sharing power. Next, changing how he is in highly heated conflicts. Next up, changing how he responds to his partner's or former partner's anger or grievances. Next, changing his parenting. Now we got changing his treatment of her as a parent. Next, changing his attitude toward females in general. Next up and last, accepting the consequences of his actions, including not feeling sorry for himself about those consequences and not blaming her or the children for them. That is the list that he created, and I think it is an amazing list. As I was going through this, I actually felt relief because I knew in my heart of hearts that I had done all those things, but I didn't want to be the judge of that. I sent this to Paige with no context, and she said, wow, I've done every single one of those things. So we're on the right track, best I can tell so far. But I know that our listeners a lot of times are dealing with addiction, and it kind of clouds things because half of you are convinced that if you can stop them from drinking, things are going to get better. The other half don't know where to start. And then maybe not half, but a smaller portion of you understand that it's really about the behaviors, right? It's the behaviors, and it will always be the behaviors. So if we're just talking about abuse in that context, it kind of removes the messiness of it. But let's go ahead and tailor this list and kind of adapt it to what it would look like for recovery context. So 1, admits fully to abuse and the harm done. And this is without minimizing. This is without blaming addiction. This is without calling it just the drinking. Okay. So I made notes here. And the first thing I said was, it's scary. It's so scary how easy it is to write off the things that we do. It is truly scary how easy it is to write off the things we do. I can remember some of the things that I did. I remember spending money we didn't have. I remember lying about it. I remember taking my children to dangerous locations to pick up things I had no business picking up. I slept great at night. I just let it go. To me, it was like, whatever, not that big of a deal. I minimized it. And then to the degree that I did feel shame, I just blamed the addiction. That's truly what I did. I was like, that's just what addicts do. That's just what we do. And I think I kind of compartmentalized it in my mind. I don't know how or why, but it was strangely easy it was strange how easy that was to do. This is years later. I'm looking at this thinking, holy shit, like none of those are normal behaviors. Like that is insane, but it feels normal. And maybe it's just because you get used to it. Maybe it's because you get so used to lying that it's like anything else. Like the first time you go swimming, that's scary, right? You nearly drown. And then over time you're like, it's just like swimming, big deal. Maybe it's like that. I don't know. Maybe we just get used to it, like habituation. I don't know. The next note I had was kind of interesting here. And this is on the first point, admits fully to abuse and the harm done. I had this insight that when you treat yourself like absolute shit all the time, it kind of becomes easy to treat others like shit. And that's not okay whatsoever. I want to preface that by saying that is not okay. But it's crazy how easy it is to expect other people to accept that level of treatment. And it's almost like when you're okay with it, everyone else should be okay with it too, right? This is kind of where abusive manipulations start. Like you're not respecting other people's standards of behaviors for what they perceive to be right and wrong, for their emotions and how they feel about something. You're just essentially saying that my perspective is more important than yours. And what does that sound like? As we talked about earlier, when we talked about like these power imbalances and things like that, like these are the bones of abusive behavior. I would say, like in my mind, I would think I can handle it. Like, why can't they? Like, big effing deal. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal to the degree that you make it one, which is like kind of like gaslighting 101. Like, A, there is no problem. That's not how I remember it. Or B, to the extent that there is a problem, actually your problem with it is the problem. Like, how many times have you guys heard that? Considering other people to just be super sensitive. And if you just weren't so effing sensitive, if you could just be cool about this, if you could just get over it, if you could just drop it. I had to admit to all this stuff. And I think I had to break from the delusion that any of this stuff was normal. Like that's where the start was for me. And that's what I did when I admitted fully to the abuse and to the harms done, was first acknowledging how insane a lot of this stuff was. And then we'll get to sort of the empathy piece of this here in just a bit. But admitting to abuse and what that actually looks like. So that's lying, that's manipulating, that's gaslighting, that's being aggressive, that's breaking and damaging things. That could be physical abuse, that could be physical intimidation. All of these things fall into this category, okay? This could even be passive aggressive types of abuse where you, if you've ever seen The Godfather, right? They don't ever actually threaten anyone. They just make them an offer they can't refuse, right? Kind of falls into the same category. It's discreet abuse, but it's still abuse. Nonetheless, it's still abuse. It's a threat disguised as a decision or a choice that you get to make. And that is also abusive. So this is the next one, acknowledging that abuse was a choice. This one I did pretty quickly because once I thought it through, and especially once I'd been sober for a bit, I was like, no, that absolutely was a choice. This was even part of my recovery as I was working through steps, and I did 12-step, but if you didn't do 12-step, there are other ways you will still uncover some of this stuff. In fact, I would say that there's a lot of people who work 12-step that never do this kind of stuff. Luckily, I was around good people who called me on this kind of crap, but acknowledging that abuse is a choice. So substances may have intensified it, but they are not the cause of abusive behavior. Are there exceptions? Probably. There's always exceptions to things. But I would say in general, that's the rule. It does not cause abusive behavior. doesn't cause it. It can exacerbate it. It can intensify it, but I wouldn't say it causes it. Not everyone that gets drunk gets abusive. Not everyone that uses an amphetamine gets abusive or uses cocaine gets abusive. People react differently on different things. A lot of the times it's your underlying ideas and attitudes that affect how that stuff shows up. You ever heard someone say that it's the real them? It's what is it? A sober man's words when they're drunk. It's just like what they're saying, what they wish they could say when they were sober. I think that some of that stuff is true. I really do. But I was aware when I was acting like a complete asshole. And I can recall moments where I literally let myself snap. I think we've all had these moments where you get angry and you just snap, right? And you never feel good about it yourself afterward. Oh my God, can't believe I did that. I would do this pretty regularly. This is like a monthly, if not weekly occurrence, where I would have something go on and I would feel that anger boiling and it would get to my throat and I would just say, fuck it. And I would just let myself go crazy and I'd snap and I'd slam shit and I'd yell and I would scare people and the dog would be shaking in the corner and Paige would be, crying and upset. And here I am. That was me. That was me pre all of this stuff. That was me. That's the real me. That guy's in there. Okay. That's like the core makeup of me. And I've had to work the last decade to undo a lot of this stuff and recognize it when it pops up. Do I still get angry sometimes? Sure I do. I'm human just like you guys. I get angry, but now I get to pause and make a decision on how I'm going to respond and not react. But that takes work and that takes practice. And I think first it takes acknowledging that it's an effing choice. That's the first step. But another thing is that I would have remorse. Like I knew what I did wrong. Why do we feel badly when we've done something wrong? Because we know what right is. That's a choice. I knew that what was right and I didn't behave in the way that I knew to be right. And I had a choice in the matter. Abuse is a choice. Also, think about the abusive person in your life, whoever this might be. Are they abusive to everyone? No. Usually not the way it works, right? They're flying monkeys. They're totally cool with. They are nice to those people. New people, attractive women, they're nice to those people, right? But to you, not so much. They choose who they abuse. They choose. And it's usually because you don't let them get away with shit, because you speak up and because you challenge them and they don't like that. And when you do, they get abusive, right? They want to assert dominance, control over you. It's a choice, guys. This is a choice. Remember this. When you're thinking about someone's trauma and what they've been through, are the reasons it's there? Yes. Do they have choices to make to get out? Also, yes. And you have to live with both of those truths, truly. Next one, stops using addiction as an excuse. This is kind of like 12-step in a nutshell. I love 12. It saved my life. It did, but I will always be honest about some of the nuance in my opinions about it. And it's just my opinion, right? I don't represent that group by any means. I'm just a dude that came across it. That's all. I'm not an expert here, but I do see this a lot. I see it. I see it all the time. I was drunk or I was high is offered as the reason for abuse, or oftentimes the reason for infidelity. What always got me there is infidelity. Okay. Is it someone that on a whim blacked out one night and slept with someone they met at a hotel bar on a work trip and it was a one-time deal and they don't remember it? Or, which is usually the case, there is an ongoing sort of affair of sorts, whether that's an emotional affair, text message going back and forth. Text messages don't just take place when they're drunk. This is like throughout the day, and they're remembering the stuff when they're sober and they're not saying anything and they're still going about it. Like they are conscious about it, y'all. It breaks my heart when I see, because I know that there's so many women that want their relationships to work and they truly love this guy. They do, but do not buy his bullshit that it was just the alcohol. They know when they're sober. They remember when they're sober too. Okay. If there's someone who's continually carrying on something, like that's a choice. That is a choice. Just remember that. I'm trying to protect you guys, trying to put you in positions where you're not going to be made to be let down later. This is a choice that these guys are making. Now, I will stand a little bit here and say, like, I never did this. I never had any of the emotional affairs or infidelity or anything like that. So I can't speak from the position of someone that has been there. In all fairness, I'm just using ration and logic here, and the experiences of those that have, like you'll read about in this book, as Bancroft calls them out quite often on some of these same points, and even better ones. Just you'd have to check it out. But I wrote here, I had to admit wholly that I had much more going on than a love for substances, and I had a choice in the way that I treated people. It was so much more than just this love affair with the substance that was causing my behaviors. Furthermore, I think that there's also this point. Let's say that you have someone in your life that says it's just the substance that makes me treat you that way, and you've bought that excuse. You've chosen to accept that. Okay, then if we're aware that that substance can cause treatment of the person you're supposed to love and admire and covet more than anything, if it causes mistreatment of that person, then why are we still giving the substance the time of day? Fair question, I think. If we know that that's what happens, if that is what happens, then why are we still drinking? Good question. I know that addiction plays a part in this, but again, abuse, the behaviors, our choice. It always will be, and I will stand by that. Okay, makes specific amends. Now, I've seen this done right. I've seen this done wrong. In 12-step, traditionally, you've all probably heard of like the 9th step. In step 8, you make a list of people that you've harmed, and you just become willing to make amends to them. And then in 9, you make amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I always like to point out that you are not others. You, being the person making the amends, are not others, okay? Some people really weaponize and bastardize this. We talked about this in a recent episode, or a reel, I think. I've lost track. One of the two. We talked about it. But make specific amends for both abuse and addiction-related harms, like lies, chaos, financial destruction, whatever it might be. You have to own all of that stuff, all of it. Here's where I think we kind of get things wrong in the literature. I think if you've got some really good, healthy people around you, they're going to tell you to do this, but not everyone does, okay? And some people try to work the steps by themselves and just interpret what they want to out of it without having someone to check their ideas. It's not wise, but they will make amends for the things that they think they did wrong. How is that fair, right? If the spirit is to make direct amends to people that you've harmed, define harm. You shouldn't get to define it, abuser. You should allow them to define it. And so I think that you should obviously make amends for the things that you're both very aware of. But I think at the very end of that, you have to make space and say something to the effect of, choose your own words, but is there anything that I've done that I haven't brought up that I need to know about? And then hold the floor and allow them the space and hold the space for them to discuss harms done that you're not even aware of, that you need to acknowledge, because that's where the real good stuff happens. That's when you really give people their power back a little bit to talk about their experiences. I think you have to do this. I think you have to do this. This is my recovery checklist. Okay. If I was going to create my own. So you got to do that. You're following my plan. Next one, engages in recovery consistently. Sobriety practices, support systems, therapy, whatever it might be, without needing to be pushed, without having, dude, you have no idea. If you're a guy listener, I have had more conversations than I can count where your wives, your girlfriends, your fiancés are desperate for you to work some sort of a program. And they're not just saying 12-step, but do something. And you need it too. You might not think you do. And I know as guys, it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to put yourself out there. Maybe you were never taught how to ask for help. Maybe you were never taught how to receive help, but you're going to need help. You're going to need, and it's great, man. It's like hiring a consultant that just gives you feedback and makes sure that you're on the right track. Like, you're still doing the work. If you want to be gruff about it, you still get to do the work, but you just got someone there who's guiding you in some way, because you're going to miss something. If you think that you're going to fix all of this with the same perspective that created it, you're wrong. You're just wrong. You're going to have to broaden your perspective, and that means you're going to have to take outside perspectives. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just humility, and that's also part of recovery. And we'll get to that here in a bit. You know what? Actually, I'm going to call myself out. Oh, wasn't going to do this, but I should do this. Some of these things pop up from time to time, even after recovery. So we, in like 12 step, and I think everyone's got their own version of this, but it's like continued inventory, continuing to check yourself, continuing to watch for old behaviors as they pop up. I had one pop up tonight, y'all. I'm sitting here. I'm not even going to justify it. Someone knocked on the door and I was rude to him for no reason other than I felt that feeling pop up, and I was like, I didn't like scream and cuss at him, but I was dismissive of them and I was rude. And Paige was actually on the porch and she was embarrassed by it. And at first I wanted to justify why I did it, door-to-door salesman, blah, 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 blah. And listen, that's not a luxury that I have anymore to act that way. I've had my life's fill of that. My goal at this point is to constantly right those wrongs. I'm shooting for true north. I'm shooting for perfection. And so I have to right this stuff. We ended up getting the guy's card. It's like this poor roofer, right? He's just going door to door. I had like 6 or 7 calls from roofers in the last 2 days and texts. And I'm just like, now one's here and I felt so self-righteous in the moment. I was like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to like give it to the roofing industry by just being rude to this poor guy, just trying to grind and get some roofs, and it was wrong of me. And like 30 minutes later, I sat here and I always check myself after stuff like this. And I look for signs of the universe. Like, where was I off base? Was I off the beam? Where was I wrong? And I say a quick prayer. And I was hoping what would come back was, yeah, F those door-to-door salesmen. But that's not what came back at all. What came back was like, you owe that person an apology. You should be embarrassed. Like, that's ridiculous. That's old you type shit. We're better than this now. You don't get to act that way anymore. And so I had to go get the guy's card out of the trash can, and I messaged him and I apologized. And that is embarrassing to say because I'm supposed to be the guru, right? But here I am still being an asshole for no effing reason. Regardless of what I've got going on in my life right now, it's not an excuse to treat people that way because it's a choice, right? I'm telling you right now from experience that the stuff still pops up, and I had a choice in that moment and I made the wrong one. Now, recovery is what it's about, is acknowledging this stuff and correcting it, making that right with the world and with that person, and then changing your behaviors moving forward. So I'm going to call myself out. I could not sit here and read this shit knowing what I just did like an hour ago, right? And I don't do this stuff often. Like, I don't know the last time I've done something like that and had to like make an apology, but it pops up. And when it does, you got to be ready. And so as we get to some of these other ones, like, where is it at? Hang on. I lost my spot. We were counting earlier and now counting has come back to haunt me again. Oh, engages in recovery consistently. That's what I meant by that. Was it's an ongoing process of checking yourself, and you're consistently doing it so it's fresh. And this is why I still help people. This is why I still go to treatment centers. This is why I still take advice from people. This is why I still learn every day, and I still like absorb things, and I read, and I stay humble about it because I still make mistakes. And so that's part of the deal. You have to do that. You have to engage consistently over time. Old patterns don't die overnight. These are notes that I made. No, old patterns don't die overnight or after one day of acting right. In my experience, it takes consistent action over a very long period of time to begin to right this stuff. And helping others is huge too. I think that's out of everything that I've ever done, like therapy or like sitting in a meeting, like that stuff, you can absorb things, but like if you want to learn about something, read about it. If you want to understand something, you should write about it. If you want to master something, you should teach it. Teach it. And in order to teach it, you've got to work with other people, because that's when the concepts really become real to you. Not to mention, you're also responsible for conveying that in a way that makes your brain like there's friction in your brain as you're trying to get the thought across. And that's how real learning takes place. I just learned about this on a podcast about neuroplasticity. And that's how learning takes place. That's why AI can be dangerous, actually, because it takes away the friction in our minds. And it will literally make us dumber. If you don't believe me, look up the Google effect. We're going to talk about that in an episode one day, because I want to talk about AI and therapy and why that's a good thing and a bad thing. Anyway, helping others is huge. So you should be doing things like this. Developing new coping strategies. You find non-abusive, sober ways to handle anger, stress, resentment, shame, fear, all these emotions that we consider icky emotions, right? We find new ways to deal with this stuff. I think acknowledging them is one part of it, right? Okay, I'm an angry person. Okay, that's not enough. Now the other is actually handling it in new ways. Anger for me, the biggest thing that I ever learned how to do was pause. If I could just pause, because like my amygdala reacts and my brain just goes straight into like monkey mode. I just want to lash out. But I have a choice in the matter. I have a prefrontal cortex as well, right? And I can pause. I can stop myself. Even when I feel like I want to burst, I stop myself. And eventually the cortex takes over and your reason takes over, and you get some positive feel-good hormones flowing back in there, and not just cortisol and these anger stuff. And I learned how to pause and respond rather than react. And that took practice. And that literally took just biting my tongue sometimes and just shutting up and just telling myself, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And allowing myself to respond differently. Over time, I've gotten good enough at this where very rarely do I have some smart ass remark that comes straight out of my mouth. I'm usually able to stop myself. Pausing's huge, man. Stress. I do breath work. I've got an app on my phone and I've used it in my office many times. One time the janitor thought something was wrong with me because it was after hours. I was in there working and I was just super stressed. And I was doing breath work with my headphones in. And he thought I was having a heart attack or something. He shook me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm good, man. Just over here doing my breath work for stress." The app's called, I think it's called Breathe. Now I'm saying this and I'm going to have to go find it. I can't remember. Look up breathwork app, y'all. You don't need to use the one I use. What does that mean, right? Nothing. Just find one that works for you. Breathwork's amazing. Oxygen literally changes the way that your brain feels. You will feel differently, and that makes it easier to think differently. Reading is a huge one for me. Learning as much as I possibly can. It calms me down as well. Gratitude lists are a big deal for me. In my worst days, especially in early recovery, I was actually making gratitude lists whenever I would start to feel sorry for myself. Like I'd get stressed at work a lot. And then I'd have to remember, like, my phone's ringing because I'm needed, because someone thinks enough of me to make decisions, because I'm in a place of privilege where I'm able to make these kinds of decisions, and I'm able to take care of my family because of it. And I have my health, and I've got 2 healthy kids, and they're both in school, and I've got an amazing, beautiful wife that holds me accountable. And she's my best friend, and she's hilarious, and she's goofy, and I love her, and she loves me. And like, we're lucky. We have a roof over our heads, and we've got a googly-eyed little dog that's adorable. And suddenly the world ain't so freaking bad. And suddenly I'm not so stressed. That was a huge one for me. Journaling, taking breaks, sometimes just venting. Venting can just help, man. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to myself in the car. Like, I'm that guy sometimes, but it helps just get it out. A healthier way than hurting others, right? Big one for me is just acknowledging my role in things that pop up. Like, I can be pissed, that I've got customers that I would say kind of abuse us sometimes and like expect way too much of us. But I designed it that way because I didn't have boundaries, and I made them comfortable doing that. So I have a part in that. I can be pissed at the same time. I'm like, it's business. They're going to do it if they can get away with it. That's kind of the way business works. Also, it's kind of what sets you apart. That's why you have a job, pal. So I do things like that. Shame. I think I was decent at like understanding I'm not a bad person, and I'm allowed to make mistakes like every other person, not all the time. And as long as you make proper apologies for that stuff and you change your behaviors, it's okay to make mistakes, dude. If we're going to screw up, like, I feel bad for the way that I treated that man earlier. I don't think I'm a bad person. I think I was a dick, and I had a moment. Not to dismiss it either. Like, I take it seriously. I think Paige even said something like, "Wow, like taking this really seriously." I'm like, yeah, I am. It's a big deal to me. I'm not supposed to act this way, but people will make mistakes, including you, listener. You will say something at some point you regret and go, "Ooh, that was a low blow, man. I'm sorry for that one." Yeah, Yeah, you're not just like your crazy dad that everyone hates. You're not just like him. Maybe a little bit. Maybe the apple didn't fall too far from the tree, but you get my point. Okay, we're coming up on, damn it, I did it again. We're like an hour into this deal. I feel like I've been sitting here for 30 minutes. I don't know. Maybe some of you like longer episodes. Maybe I need to hear from y'all, so I have ammunition to tell Freights and Paige this ain't so bad. But then again, I have an excuse because this is our Wednesday episode, which is typically this length. I'm really trying to get better about the shorter stuff on Monday. All right. Doesn't use recovery as leverage. This is number 7. You cannot say things like, I'm sober now. You should trust me, especially not right away. You don't get to use this as a bargaining chip. You don't get to cash it in for future abusive episodes or future relapses and stuff like that, where you know this is a problem. It's not currency, y'all. It's not currency. And I've never once done this. People are allowed to feel however they feel about me, and I will never tell them that their experience is not valid because I'm better now. Never, ever, ever, ever. Your experience is real with me, and I will live the rest of my life honoring that and living in honor of that. I promise you that. And next one, accepts that change is long term. Okay, this is a tough one because in recovery, oftentimes we say that it's just for today. It's just one day at a time. And in the beginning, that's true. Sometimes it's just 1 minute at a time. It's like 30 seconds at a time. Oh my God, it's hard, man. And the thought of forever is scary. I was in treatment in April, and I was already thinking about our daughter's wedding. She was 9 months old. How am I going to toast at her wedding when I don't drink alcohol? Right? How am I going to celebrate Thanksgiving and watch the Cowboys probably get their ass kicked again? Yes, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I'm a real one. Okay. I'm not a delusional type. How am I going to celebrate Christmas? How am I going to do any of this stuff without alcohol? Because it was like the center of my universe. And I just took everything so seriously. Everything had to do with alcohol. And the thought of forever was so much. And then I had this guy give me this really simple idea. He just said, all you have to do is stop for today. That's it. He goes, and I've just been telling my dumbass self that for 20 something years, and it works. I was like, I love that. I don't have to commit to anything except for today. And that's honestly the truth, because what do we have except for today? But that's the deal. Every morning you get up, you got to promise today. And you just do that over and over and over. That's the way it works. I don't know if I'm going to drink in a year. Dude, my brain is so tiny and peanut-like. I don't know what's happening next week. Paige told me we're going to a concert this week, and I didn't know there's a concert. I had no clue. I just found out, feels like. But I kind of remember booking it with her. Just been so scatterbrained, busy and stuff. Like, that's life, right? I don't know what's going to, just today. But I also understand that is a promise. Every today that I am gifted, I will make that promise that day. So it kind of is forever, right? It's just not. Frame it however you need to make it make sense to you, but it's long term at the very least. Abuse recovery and addiction recovery are long processes. Learn more about neuroplasticity and read about those processes and how they change. And the brain is neuroplastic and it is always changing, but it doesn't happen overnight. Okay. It doesn't happen like just boom, especially when it comes to abuse, because those are more behaviors that are kind of instilled in you. Some of the compulsion of drinking and alcohol, things like that stuff can be relieved with, like, medications are getting pretty good at this. And some of the psychedelics that are out there are getting pretty good at this. But when it comes to behaviors, that's going to be long term. Let's see here. Oh yeah. I got a word for the people who just want to try this for like 6 months and then go back to doing your own thing. Like, save your loved ones the trouble and just tell them now. Just go ahead and tell them what your plan is. Let them make the choice. Don't hold them hostage. I mean that. All right. Next up, shares power and responsibility. I've never been like one of those like old school, like 50s types dudes that's like man's like the center of the home or anything like that. But in a lot of ways, I did not share power in arguments. Did not at all. Always felt like my perspective was more important or somehow more valid. And that was where my abuse really showed up, wasn't things like that. But at home and parenting and decision-making, you're no longer expecting others to carry all the weight. There's some people out there where when it comes to parenting, like, no, that's women's work. I ain't doing that shit. You kidding me? I don't take them kids places. I just give them a roof over their heads and I feed them. But I did read today that I think millennial dads are spending like 3 or 4 times more time with their children than ever. So like, let's go, guys. We're doing great. Let's go, millennial dads. I think we can still do better, especially if you're kind of like me and you're listening to this show. My guess is you could probably do better, right? Just say, call it how it is, right? I know that I did. So I know in decision making, I think I've always shared power pretty well there. But Paige may disagree. I would defer to her to ask her how she feels about that. Parenting, man, this is just my perspective. I've always felt like they're 51% hers and they're 49% mine. Like she carried them, she birthed them. I feel like that earns you like majority ownership. So I've always kind of deferred more to her, even when I disagree about something, even if it's passionately disagree. All that I will ask of her is like, I just ask that you consider my perspective here, but I'm going to defer to you. That's just the way my relationship works. Y'all can do whatever you want. But I do think that if you are an abusive person, you should aim for something along those lines. I think that kind of fits with the book and everything else. But that's in all things. And I think that Paige and I have always shared power and leadership pretty well, except for when it came to arguments and things like that. I was terrible at it. It's sharing domestic duties. Listen, I'm not here to beat up people who are happy with their arrangements at home. What I'm saying is if there's an unequal balance there, like equal looks different for everyone. I should just say that, right? Maybe you guys have an arrangement where like someone works like offshore or something and like they can't be there to handle things. Like obviously like you guys knew what you were going to do as a team and that works for you. I'm talking about like coming home and watching someone like do the laundry as you're sitting there on your ass, like flipping through TikTok and you know they're stressed and there's kids are screaming and there's dishes in the sink and it's like, you could help a little bit, you know, like, dude, like being a dad is like your number one job. Being a husband is your number one job. Like your career is 2. Take care of your first job. We go to our second one for longer, unfortunately, but we still come home. We got to do stuff, man. Raise your kids and clean stuff. 10 shows up differently in conflict. This is where the change really starts to show. Like I've always said, and I've never really gotten the chance to do it, but anytime I hear some guy talking about how they didn't have to do all this stuff to recover, I always just say like, I want to talk to your wife. I want to talk to your wife so bad. I want her take. I've even had wives like reach out to me, in like 12-step work, or if I was like working with someone like a mentor or something like that. And they're like, how's he doing? And I'm like, you should be the judge of that, not me. Like he can feed me bullshit. I have no clue, but you see him at home. You're going to be the one that knows, not me. I have no clue. Like they lie to me, man. I've had so many that I thought were like, oh, this guy's getting it. And then you come to find out he's been arrested for domestic violence or something. I'm like, oh, wow. I'm a terrible judge of character. That's happened to me more times than I can count. So I quit trying to say that I know. I don't know. You guys know. When someone shows up differently in conflict, that's how you know that they're actually starting to make changes. No more exploding, no gaslighting, no storming out and breaking stuff. No, they handle disagreements sober and respectfully. And I wrote here, sometimes I used to just have to shut my mouth up until my thoughts caught up and I could think rationally. Mention that again, like learning how to pause. But I've gained the ability to respond rather than react. And that part's huge. And I think that anyone, like if this is a checklist of what recovery is, that's one of the things that I would say is essential. I think they're all essential, but that one really essential to an ongoing relationship, especially. Responds with accountability to their partner's pain. Listens without dismissing it as you're just overreacting. You're just being sensitive, or that was just the addiction. Any of that crap, that doesn't fly. Accountability. Their pain is real. The pain that a partner or a spouse feels is as real as anything. I don't care if I was not there for it because I was elsewhere because of whatever I put in my body. It is real to them as anything else. And you have to hold space for that pain. You have to sit there with them through that. You have to understand what that did to them and what that keeps doing to them down the line. How are you ever going to fix it if you don't understand? You have to sit there. This is where the empathy piece comes in that we talked about earlier. If you have trouble empathizing because of something you've been through in your life, you could at the very least cognitively understand how that's hurtful. Put yourself in their shoes and understand. Maybe you're lacking a few mirror neurons that you can't feel it with them, but you can certainly effing understand it, okay? You can do that. Let's see, models healthy recovery in family life. This is another one on my checklist. You have to be transparent, you have to be consistent, and you have to be dependable, and you show change through action, not through words. So this is honesty. Honesty. This is the one thing that I think I got right. It's honesty. I haven't told a lie since like 2013. I don't lie anymore. I can't lie anymore. I made a promise to myself and the universe. I would never tell another lie. If I could actually have this problem removed from my life and I could be given another chance at life without, like my organs not giving out on me and stuff like that. I'm not talking about other people giving me a chance. I'm talking about like my physical body not giving out on me. Like I would never lie again. And I haven't. I don't lie anymore. Integrity as well. Do the right thing when no one's looking. Do the right thing without having to be asked. Just do the right thing because it's the right thing. This shows up in your parenting as well. Like if you're not going to be able to portray this kind of stuff, how do you expect your kids to absorb it? They're sponges, man. They've got to get it from you. You got to show up for your kids. You got to show up for your wife, and other people too. You got to be there for other people. You with nothing in it for you. You can't just be a net taker anymore. Do things and pack back into the stream of life. Provide to the stream of life. This is a huge piece of it. And as a partner or spouse, you're going to be able to see all of this stuff. This is really for you guys. Like I would love for someone who's like a guy listener, like you're like me and you're listening and you're like, okay, these are the things I can work for, but you don't get to determine if you've done this or not. They do. That's how you know it's real. It's like letting your teacher grade your test instead of grade your own test. It's a little different. It's really easy to scratch out that Scantron. You remember those things. All right. Last two, accepts consequences without self-pity. You don't flip into the poor me mode when facing fallout from abuse or addiction. Never, ever, 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 ever start the poor me stuff or make consequences about us. I had this guy reach out who I think is trying to some degree to acknowledge some of the harm that's gone on in his relationship. And his wife was pissed at him because they were talking on the phone. He's not living at home, best I could tell. And their daughter was really upset. She was crying because she missed him, but he was out of the house for good reason, so that she felt safe to protect herself. Those were her boundaries. And he made it about him. He said, thanks for making me feel like shit or something like that. Or like, that's a huge punch in the gut, you saying that. He's making it about him instead of just sitting there with it and acknowledging that pain and processing that and turning it into something that might propel him toward change, give him motivation to move forward. Made it about him. And she got pissed and he didn't understand why. So I had to tell him that's exactly why. Because you're playing the poor me card. You can't do that, man. That's rule 13. You can't, you have to accept your consequences without any self-pity. Like you're feeling this way because of conditions you set into motion. You don't then get to feel like a victim in it, right? You don't. And that's very invalidating to the other people that you've harmed when you try to make it about you. I'm not saying you can't have feelings or emotions about it. Just don't talk to her about them. Shit, man, call someone else. Like how dumb can we be sometimes, right? I've probably been guilty at this at some point in my youth. I don't know, but last one, maintain humility. Understand that sobriety alone does not equal transformation. It's not just sobriety, it's emotional maturity. That's the biggest part of the work. And humility is huge, man. Like continue to be teachable, continue to be like humility. And I think people really screw up humility a lot of times. The best quote I ever heard, I think it was C.S. Lewis, but I'm not sure, said humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. It's not thinking that you're this horrible person and everyone just can beat me up and oh shucks, I'm nothing. It's nothing like that. It's just thinking of yourself less and thinking of others more. In doing that, you will give more to the world than you take, right? And you remain teachable and you remain coachable and that you can still learn something and that you're never a finished product. And that you can have a sense of humor about yourself and you can laugh at yourself, and you can make mistakes without having your ego bruised, and like say you're sorry without feeling like you're a failure. Like, this is humility, all this stuff. And I don't think you can set out to like gain humility. I think humility is a byproduct of all this other stuff. I don't like, if you said today, like, how do I get more humility? It'd be the longest conversation I've ever had with the person, because I would have to tell them about all this other stuff that comes first. And then as a result of those things, you will become more humble. I think that's kind of the way it works. That's just my opinion anyway. So that's my checklist. That's my checklist for assessing change in recovery. And I hope it's been helpful to you. If you guys would like, I could publish this. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll stick it in a newsletter. How about that? I'll make a note right now, actually, to send this in the newsletter. I have not sent one out in a little bit. And maybe I'll just send one out to remind people we still have one, because I've been making episodes instead, because it's easier to speak into a microphone than it is to write. Writing's a lot, right? Hang on, newsletter, send list. I will send the list in the newsletter if it's helpful to anyone. It may only be helpful to me, but I hope it's helpful to you guys. At the very least, for spouses and partners, we're here for you guys. And I want you to know that's what recovery looks like. And you can find me anyone that wants to argue about it. Maybe we can add something to the list, but we can't take anything off of that list. Those things are essential. That's how you gauge progress. That's how you gauge progress when it comes to abuse, because remember, this is about abuse and recovery. It's not just about sobriety. This is about behaviors. How do you gauge someone's actually changing their behaviors? We've gone through Bancroft's list, which I think is excellent. And we've gone through a further list that deals with behaviors and addiction and things like that. And I think that they're both going to be excellent as you start to make decisions about, what are we doing here? Is this relationship going? Is this person actually changing, or are they not? You are going to know. I just want you to know that you don't need to feel so sorry for guys like me, because we have options. We have choices. There are ways that we can get better, but we've got to want to do that. Remember that it is a choice, and we're here for you guys. Partners and spouses, we will always be here for you guys. I will be here a little for the guys on the side, for the ones that really, really want to do the deal. There just aren't a whole lot of them. And I will call more and more and more of them out, hopefully get more of them involved. But at the end of the day, this is work that very few people are going to do. Bancroft is very, very bleak on his stats about how many people actually go through this work. Essentially says just a little more than none, more or less. Not many at all. Very, very few. But check out the book if you're really curious to see what's going on inside the mind of an abusive person. I know that a lot of our listeners deal with some serious abuse, things that have literally brought me to tears, or I've had to pull over on the side of the road. I shouldn't be reading while I'm driving, but I do sometimes. Sorry. But some really, really serious stuff, guys. You are dealing with something serious here, and you need to treat it seriously, and your decisions need to be taken very seriously. And information like this, hopefully some of the stuff that I provided here lets you know how serious it really is and what change actually looks like. And you should settle for nothing less. Absolutely nothing less. Do not take some bullshit version of anything that we've just discussed. Take every bit of it or nothing. That's where I'm at with it, because I love you all, and I want to protect you, and I want to be there for you, and I want to make sure that you're entering this world of recovery and repair with information that a lot of people didn't have. And you do too. You do now. So I hope it's helpful. Sending you guys tons of love if you're going through this. And I mean that. I absolutely mean that. Paige sends her love. And until next time, I'm Matt, and I'll see you.